Good afternoon. There are times in life where opportunity and need come together to create a new moment. And we feel like we're at that moment as it relates to education and career planning in the world and in the United States in particular. Our society is changing. The employment market is shifting very dramatically. Education is being reinvented. And there's a new type of student emerging, which we call the lifetime learner. That lifetime learner has a passion and a commitment to education and recognizes that education is really a journey. It's not a destination any longer. They've realized they'll need to be reskilled and they'll need to come in and out of the education and employment marketplace for decades ahead. I have the opportunity in my day-to-day job to spend time with lots of students and lots of people, from high school students to people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And what we see today is there really is a democratization of education. People are taking control, maybe in a new way for the first time ever, of their destinies, both as students and as professionals, and that's remarkable. But they encounter a lot of challenges. They encounter financial challenges, they encounter time challenges, but perhaps most importantly for today's conversation, they're challenged by the fact that it's not always clear what road to take. The path is not self-evident. There are many options. In fact, there's more options than ever, and that creates an acute need for a new idea. And our new idea is what we call the passport for learning. I'd like to introduce you to someone who's taking advantage of those principles in action. Her name is Leslie. She's a remarkable lady. She's lived her life with lots of forks in the road like the rest of us. She's decided after many, many choices and economic challenges and other types of challenges in her life that she's going to go back to school. She's actually going to take control of her life and pursue a new dream that she has that she's really been thinking about for a long time. So let me introduce you to Leslie.
I'm Leslie. I'm a Penn Foster student studying veterinary technology, and I'm from Massachusetts. I had a black lab, and I had to put her to sleep. And I started thinking how traumatic it was for me to lose this dog, because she was family. I've been toying with the idea of getting the degree as a vet tech. The idea of working with animals has always still been in the back of my mind. And when I took the dogs recently for their annual physical, I started talking to my vet, and he said, do it. And I went home and I signed up.
So the reason we wanted you to meet Leslie, aside from her contagious enthusiasm, is that she is an important part of our conversation today. She's an example of the student of the future, and arguably the student of the present, the lifelong learner, a person who will have a 30, 40, or 50-year professional career and will come in and out of the education economy to take best advantage of those opportunities for her and for her family. Now, this education economy and really this new employment economy has very significant dynamics that we'd like to talk about. The first is there's an acceleration of the types of jobs available. Leading experts say that somewhere between 60 to 80% of all jobs in the future, 20 years from now, don't even exist today. If that number seems a little aggressive, think about your friends who are in cloud computing and mobile computing and social media. Those opportunities and those jobs didn't exist 10 years ago, and there'll be similar things in the next 10 years. The second dynamic has to do with the workforce at large, and there's three things we thought worth sharing. First of all, birth rates in the United States continue to go down, which means there'll be less workers in the future. The second thing is that a child born this year, in 2013, has a 1 in 3 chance of actually living to be 100 years of age. That's remarkable. And then finally, our workforces are going to become more complex, more diverse. For the first time in the history of the United States, in just a few years, there'll be no race and no ethnicity that represents 50% of the majority of the population. That'll have significant implications as we think about workforces of the future. The third component is reputation. Now, reputation has always mattered. It mattered 1,000 years ago, it mattered 10 years ago, and it certainly matters today. The difference is that 10 years ago when you went to get a job, you'd create your own resume, you'd apply for the job, you'd interview, a friend of yours would do a reference check for you, you'd take the job, and hopefully it worked out. But if it didn't, it was okay. You'd pivot and move on to the next opportunity. In this economy and the economy of the future, there's a completely different level of transparency. Whether it be the identity graph at Twitter, or the social graph at Facebook, or the professional graph on LinkedIn, there's a different lens on who you are, and managing your brand in a very deliberate and purposeful way is important. And it's not just important for white-collar workers, it's important for blue-collar and gray-collar professionals as well. And that will have big implications. And so we talk about the new calculus of the workforce. Those three factors result in some kind of funky math, which we call the 7 to 14. And that's a number worth remembering. 7 to 14 is the number of jobs that each of us will likely have over the duration of our career because of this constant reskilling and constant job change. Now, the implications of this are significant. The first, of course, is much greater uncertainty. The predictability of our lives and our careers are very different. That's life, and that's something that has to be embraced and taken advantage of rather than be somehow constrained by, and we think that's really important to help people do that. The second thing has to do with meritocracy. The good news is, even today and in the future, you have complete control of your own destiny. You have to dig in, get the right advice, make the sacrifices, be purposeful, and you can be almost anything you want. However, and this is an important however and important for today, the decisions you make now have huge implications. These decisions you make on which school to go to, which job to take, this isn't just about you. It's about your family, it's about your kids, it's about your neighborhood, it's about your society. There has to be a better way to help people make the right choices in their lives professionally and academically. Now, this is a view not held just by us. This is a view held by very, very thoughtful people. The CEO of Caterpillar, for example, one of the largest industrial manufacturers in the country, says that the blue-collar occupations of the 21st century have to be reinvented. And he's not only talking about how the job gets done, he's talking about how people manage their career, how they brand themselves, how they think about their futures in a much more deliberate, analytical, and thoughtful way. And they think about the decisions we all have to make. Contemplate that whether you're a new student out of high school, a new person out of college, a transitioning employee at 30 years of age, 40, 50, or 60, the choices are complex. You have to decide what skills am I going to have in the future, given how quickly industries are emerging and dying. You have to figure out what education strategy makes sense for you given that context. How are you going to pay for it? What are the economics of the education decisions? What career track are you trying to get onto? And through all that process, how are you going to continue to manage your personal brand? These are really complicated questions. This is not something that should just be left sort of at free will and laissez-faire. People need help. This is a complicated problem for anyone to try to figure out. And we have millions of people in the United States today who are struggling not just with the affordability of education, where to find the time, but what decisions to make and how to make them and what facts do they need and what are the implications and how does that affect all the choices they're going to make along the way. Now, as you think about education, education means typically K through 12, higher education, vocational schools, four-year schools, and of course community colleges. It's kind of a code word. It's for people between ages 5 and 25. And the United States spends hundreds of billions of dollars a year to live up to the imperative to help people like this become the best people they can be. And that's terrific. But the reality is that if you actually go back and look at the origins of the word education, it's a Latin term. It never mentions in the definition age, nor does it mention place. There's no reference of that of any kind. What it talks about is the habits of learning, the habits of skill acquisition and knowledge and training, but it makes no reference to how old you need to be, and it certainly doesn't say it needs to be in a physical place. Now, this thought was held by many people through the years, including a guy who was pretty smart, Aristotle himself. He said, learning is not child's play, and education is the best provision for the journey to old age. He recognized that the idea of students as being only 5 to 25 was no more relevant then as it is today. The difference is there's an emergence of a different kind of student, which we call the lifetime learner. Now, lifetime learners used to be people who studied for study's sake. Their pursuit was self-actualization, knowledge for knowledge's sake. The lifetime learner of the future is a different kind of person. They are purposeful about what they do because they realize they need to be educated to stay relevant in the new economy. And that's a very different dynamic. Now, this idea of having lifetime learners, this arguably is a new idea, but in fact, if you get underneath the facts, it actually isn't. It's actually happening right now. Now, this fellow is obviously quite happy about being a lifetime learner, as you can see, so we're happy that he's happy. But the reality is today we have 19 million people in college. 36% of them are already over age 25. 37% of them are actually going part-time. And it's just a few years away that 50% of the people who go to college in the United States will be over 25 years of age and surely going part-time. And the proof of that is the community colleges today, where those numbers are very much in kind. So we have a context where employment markets are shifting. The lifelong learner is the new model. It's already happening around us. And our conversations tend to be focused on the traditional scope and definition of education. Now, the reality that we all know is there are new models of education emerging, and there's new pathways. The idea that you go to high school and then you go to a four-year college has tremendous amount of merit, and I think it's a good idea. But it's not the only idea, and it's surely not the best idea for all of us. In fact, it's oftentimes not the right idea for all of us. So we recognize a world where people go to high school and then they go to get a 4-year school, but maybe they shouldn't go first. Maybe they should go to community college. Maybe they should go to vocational school. Maybe they should go online for school. Maybe they should just go get a job and learn what it means to be a professional and get practical experience. And so there's no more one pathway model, and education can't assume a one path model. There's all other opportunities to get educated. There's employee training programs. There are community-based programs. There's paid content. There's free content. And then there's on-the-job training, the most important training ever. So this is a transitional moment in our country, and it's a transitional moment in this conversation because we're making the case that the lifetime learner is the new model of education in the United States. But the choices they have to make and the trade-offs they have to navigate are complex, and they're just too important to our country, too important to their families to just be made the old way. They have to be modernized. There has to be a better way to help millions of people make the right choices. And those choices need a new kind of solution. We think that new solution is what we call the passport for learning. The passport for learning will be the new model of how you empower citizens at all ages to take control of their destiny in a way they should take control. And so the idea is a simple one in concept. Build a digital platform that empowers the lifelong learner to make the kind of thoughtful choices they should make with the facts they need so they can really be the best versions of themselves at each step of the journey, from high school through their 20s, all the way through their 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's what's needed to help take what is starting to be democratized, which is education, and really turbocharge it to help people get the power of the new democratization and the power of the new affordability models and the power of the new education delivery models. Let's use that to be a catalyst for helping evolve them to be the best versions of themselves as professionals coming in and out of the education marketplace. So the idea of the lifetime learner coupled with the passport for learning is as follows. Each of us would have a 360-degree view on ourselves. It would be a decision support solution and a dashboard. It would be on your iPad, it would be on your PC, it would be on your cell phone. It would give you an aerial view of the choices you have and the trade-offs you're making. Do I go back to school and get a certification program, or do I not? Do I apply for this job? Do I post this tweet? Do I go for this training program? Do I do a community service-based organization? It's a holistic view on who you are as an individual as you evolve through your life. Not just today, not tomorrow, but in the decades ahead, because we're going to be working for many decades, and we need to take best advantage of the tools that are available today. So we think this solution would have 3 components. A module around helping you manage your credentials for your life, which would be both academic and professional, but also a lot of practical experiences we all get that we don't always get credit for. The second would be education and career planning, and the third would be helping you make better decisions as it relates to the financials. Debt management, pricing management, and all that comes with trying to finance your education. Who would be the users? All citizens would be the users. How about the 7,000 people that unfortunately every single day in the United States drop out of high school and fall off the grid? How about the 3 million people who are middle-skilled workers, desperate in search of employment while employers are saying they can't find the right people? How about thousands of people coming back from military service who want a career path that is meaningful for themselves and their family? They need a support system to help them make better choices. It's just too complicated to be left to the old model. Now, this idea is not actually that radical. It's actually been around a long time. It just had a different form. In 1903, in Massachusetts and Missouri, they invented a new device. It was called a driver's license. It worked pretty well. We have 106 million people today who use it. It tracked you through your life relative to your performance, and you were empowered to make choices. The same thing starting to happen with digital wallets, Social Security in its own way, with a Social Security card was part of that. And then the most relevant analogy is maybe the medical records of today. Everyone has a personalized medical record of who you are increasingly. It's the profile of your health. It's got self-quantification capabilities over time. It helps you make better choices. We need that capability for career management education. It's too important to be left to the old model. So what we're not talking about is taking all the innovation that's happened out in the world of education and career planning and saying it's not good. We think it's awesome. We think it's great. We want to take better advantage of it. What we're saying is, though, it's isolated pieces. It's not connected. The consumer is required to be the general contractor, and they need a holistic solution so they can see above it to make the right choices and trade-offs so the dots can connect. The consumer can't just be the dot connector. There has to be a bigger thing that connects it. And we think that bigger thing is the passport for learning. It's a meta level that sits on top, that adds intelligence, that brings order to your life so you can make the right choices. It's a catalyst for connecting the dots across the various hundreds of providers to provide piece parts of this, and it will drive a level of integration. The three components will consist of the following. Firstly, a digital safety deposit box that we will all receive in high school, or you'll opt in as an adult. It'll be the place where all of your credentials are housed over your life, and you own it. It's yours, it's your privacy. It simply comes along with you on the journey in life. It'll codify all your credentials, including the credentials in your ordinary life. If you're a volunteer in a certain area, it'll be there. If you're a leader in a certain part of the community, it'll be there. That's all part of the master plan. The second part is a platform that helps you make better choices in education. Navigating the education economy is not simple. Figuring out how to transfer credits, which curriculums fit for employment, what practicums are the right ones, how do you navigate transcript management, which employment projections should I rely on, how should I know when I should make different choices. Those are complicated problems for anyone, and they need a better solution to help bring that to life. The third area, I just wanted to warn you, there are actually two elephants in this room. You may not have noticed them yet. The third area has to do with financials and debt management and pricing. There is $1.2 trillion of debt in the United States today because of student loans. That's a lot of money. We're talking about having something like 38 million people who have student loans. 67% of those people are under 40 years of age. $26,000 per family. That's big money. The other thing that's going on is pricing. There's an economic miracle that's happened in education, which is the price of education has gone up by 1,000% in the last 40 years, and it's gone up between 5 and 8% every single year for the last decade. That's not okay, and that's not going to be sustained. The good news is the Passport for Learning will help empower people to take better control of that. It won't solve the problem, but will give people the tools they need to deal with the reality that you can't today negotiate with the school on anything. You have to basically accept the price, and you really can't negotiate your debt. But you can bring other tools and capabilities over time and other innovations to the practical aspects of navigating your choices in education. And we think the Passport for Learning can play a vital role in helping make that a reality. And so as we think about the path forward, there are many constituencies who should care about this. There's employers who should care about having a more vibrant and thicker community of talent. There are entrepreneurs who may say, I want an open source movement to bring this idea to the table. There are very large-scale, sophisticated companies that have a vested interest in helping citizens be their best selves, and they have the platform and the scale to do it. There are corporations, and in particular nonprofits, who have a vital interest in connecting employment and economics and ultimately education. And then there's the government. The government has a role to play in this whole thing, and they should be encouraging and sponsoring these kinds of ideas. They're that important. And so as we think about where this all takes us, we come back to really one of the most important inventions in the history of the world from an analytics perspective. It was the invention of the map. A map was the universal tool that everyone understood that helped people make choices regarding where they were and where they were going. It gave them an aerial view on themselves and the people around them. And what we need today is a new mapping capability for people as they navigate their careers and navigate their education decisions. They need a dynamic blueprint that gives them guidance as to where to go and when to go there and what the trade-offs are and how to make it a reality. Because the line is not straight and it never will be straight. And we think the Passport for Learning is the opportunity to help do that. The need is compelling. I know it's real. I see it each and every day. The ambition we've put forth, it's ambitious. But we think it's the right idea at the right moment for a problem that really affects everybody. And therefore, everyone should get behind it and be a part of it. Are there important questions? Absolutely. But we think they're solvable problems. And so that takes us back to where we started. In a world where the employment economy is changing and the education economy is changing, you need to put the student in the center. And that's what Leslie has done for herself. She put herself in the middle and she took control, and she is now the epicenter of her education and economic world. We want to do that for millions of other people as well, because it's important to do, it's the right thing to do, and it will make a profound difference in lots of people's lives. And our hope is that you folks will participate in helping make that possibility a reality by helping to support the idea of the Passport for Learning. Thank you.